Thanks for coming back to the channel. I know a lot of you that grew up with these cars probably know this, but this was considered in 1986 probably the pinnacle of General Motors engineering, and it was coming off of 3 straight years on Car and Driver's 10 best list from 83, 84, and 85. The Pontiac 6000 STE was a 10 best, which was a pretty big achievement even today, but back then for a domestic sedan, and as critical Car and Driver had been of all the domestic manufacturers, for the 6000 STE to really be on that list was saying something. And you know, that's what makes this car really special to me. A lot of the stuff that you kind of take for granted on cars today. Now, this had 4-wheel disc brakes. Analogs were optional, but 4-wheel disc brakes were a big deal in the early to mid 80s, and a lot of cars didn't have them for numerous years. My first new car was a 1992 Camry, and it had rear drum brakes because rear disc brakes were optional, analogs were optional. So that was a big deal for almost 10 years from the time this car was built. You go into you go back into the day when you see some of the things on vehicles, and the interior of this vehicle, it doesn't look like much right now, but it had things such as the rear pockets for your belongings. It had a rear handrest on there. It had front bucket seats, a shifter, and then of course what a 6000 STE is really known for, other than better handling, a little more powerful engine, but that European, or Pontiac's interpretation of European gauge design. I would also say Japanese gauge design. At night it lights up red, everything in other colors. It just is a feast for the eyes. But this was as good as it got, really, for a domestic sedan. And later in the 1986 model year, the world kind of changed when you had the Mercury Sable and the Ford Taurus come out. The styling of those instantly rendered anything boxy like this very old very quickly. But the Pontiac did pretty well for itself. I mean, it had great build quality by this time, and it just, it just was hitting its stride as far as it was introduced in 1982. We had a 1983 in my family, and it was not a very well-built car. We had an 85 base 6000, and it was a good car. And then 1989, we got another Pontiac 6000 LE, and it was a great car. Just they had figured out what they needed on them. As far as build quality, they really were paying attention to the details. But this car was, it was the mark of excellence, to coin a phrase, I guess, for borrow a phrase from GM, that this was the best that they offered. So I really, really, really am a fan of this car. I also have, I think, what's currently General Motors' latest mark of excellence, and probably the last of, the last of its kind as far as internal combustion engines. Now, this is a 2023 C8 Stingray. Now, it's not a Z06, but this is the 6.2 liter pushrod, and I'm kind of partial to those. I wouldn't turn down a Z06, but this is in so many ways the spiritual successor, if I go out on a really, really thin limb, to the Pontiac 6000. This is their best of best. It's a current 10 best for Car and Driver, and deservedly so. So it's kind of fun to have 1986's version of the best in the world 2023s. Thanks for watching.